Hi, and welcome to Mythic Journeys, the channel where we explore the world of myths and legends. Today we're going to be telling you the story of Sarah and the ghostly phone call, a chilling tale of horror and suspense. It was a cold, blustery night when Sarah received the first call. She was curled up on the couch, reading a book, when the phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was her husband, Michael. He had passed away in a car accident 6 months ago. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't believe it. She hit answer and held the phone to her ear. "Hello?" she whispered. "Sarah?" a familiar voice answered. "It's me, Michael." Sarah's eyes widened in shock. "Michael," she repeated. "Is this real?" "Of course it's real," Michael said. "I'm here, Sarah. I'm calling from the other side." Sarah couldn't believe it. She was talking to her dead husband. Tears welled up in her eyes. "Michael," she said, her voice breaking. "I miss you so much." "I miss you too, Sarah," Michael said. "I love you." They talked for a long time that night. Michael told Sarah about the afterlife. He said that he was happy and at peace, but that he worried about her. He told her to take care of herself and to move on with her life. Sarah was comforted by the call. She had been struggling to cope with Michael's death, but his voice helped to ease her pain. Over the next few weeks, Sarah received more calls from Michael. They would talk every night, and Sarah began to look forward to their conversations. It was like having a piece of Michael back in her life. But one night, the calls took a sinister turn. Sarah was in bed, asleep, when she was woken up by the phone ringing. She answered it groggily. "Hello?" she said. "Sarah," Michael's voice said. "You need to get out of the house." Sarah sat up in bed. "What do you mean?" she asked. "There's something here," Michael said. "Something evil. It's going to hurt you." Sarah's heart started to race. "Michael, what should I do?" she asked. "Get out of the house now," Michael said. "Don't stop to pack anything, just run." Sarah hung up the phone and jumped out of bed. She ran to the front door and threw it open. She didn't even bother to turn on the lights. She just ran into the night. Sarah ran until her lungs burned. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to get away from the house. She finally stopped running when she reached a park. She collapsed on a bench, gasping for breath. She looked up at the sky and saw a shooting star. She closed her eyes and made a wish. "Please keep me safe," she whispered. Sarah stayed in the park for the rest of the night. She didn't want to go back to the house. She was afraid of what she might find there. The next morning, Sarah went to her friend's house. She told her about the calls from Michael and about what had happened the night before. Her friend didn't believe her at first, but Sarah was so convincing that she finally started to come around. Sarah's friend took her to see a psychic. The psychic told Sarah that Michael's spirit was trapped in the house and that he was being tormented by a malevolent entity. The psychic told Sarah that the only way to save Michael was to perform an exorcism. Sarah was hesitant at first, but she knew she had to do something. She couldn't let Michael suffer any longer. Sarah contacted a priest, and he agreed to perform the exorcism. The priest came to the house the next day. He blessed the house and performed a ritual to banish the malevolent entity. After the exorcism, Sarah never received another call from Michael. But she knew that he was finally at peace. Sarah eventually moved on with her life, but she never forgot Michael. She knew that he would always be with her in her heart. Years later, Sarah was sitting on her porch swing, watching the sunset. She thought about Michael and how much she missed him. Suddenly, she saw a shooting star. She closed her eyes and made a wish. "I wish I could see Michael again," she whispered. Sarah opened her eyes and looked up at the sky. She saw a figure standing in the distance. It was Michael. He smiled at her and waved. Sarah smiled back. She knew that she would be reunited with Michael someday. Sarah stood up and walked towards Michael. As she got closer, she could see that he looked different. His eyes were sunken and his skin was pale. "Michael," she said, "are you okay?" Michael didn't answer. He just stared at her with his empty eyes. Sarah took a step back. "Michael, what's wrong?" she asked. Michael opened his mouth and spoke, but it wasn't Michael's voice. It was a deep, raspy voice that Sarah didn't recognize. "I'm not Michael," the voice said. "I'm the thing that killed him." Sarah's heart started to race. She turned and ran back to the house. She slammed the door shut and locked it.
She ran to the phone and called the police. "Help!" she screamed. "There's something in my backyard. It's trying to get in." The police arrived a few minutes later. They searched the backyard, but they couldn't find anything. "We're sorry," said one of the officers, "but there's nothing we can do." Sarah was terrified. She knew that the thing was out there somewhere. She could feel its presence. She went to bed that night, but she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing noises outside her window. She finally fell asleep in the early hours of the morning. But her sleep was troubled. She had nightmares about the thing. In her dreams, the thing was chasing her through a dark forest. She could hear its footsteps getting closer and closer. She woke up with a start. She was sweating and her heart was pounding. She looked out the window and saw the thing standing in the backyard. It was staring at her with its empty eyes. Sarah screamed and ran to the bedroom door. She locked it and then backed away slowly. The thing started to move towards the house. It walked slowly, but deliberately. Sarah looked around the room for something to defend herself with. She saw a baseball bat on the floor next to the bed. She picked it up and held it tightly in her grip. The thing reached the house and started to pound on the door. Sarah could hear the wood splintering. The door burst open and the thing came rushing in. Sarah swung the baseball bat at the thing, but it didn't seem to have any effect. The thing grabbed the bat from her hand and broke it in two. Sarah turned and ran. She ran down the hallway and into the living room. She jumped out the window and ran into the night. The thing chased after her. It was faster than she was. Sarah ran until she couldn't run anymore. She collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. The thing stood over her. It reached out its hand and touched her face. Sarah screamed as the thing's fingers sank into her flesh. She felt her life force being drained away. The thing smiled. It was a malevolent smile. Sarah closed her eyes and waited for the end. But the end never came. Sarah opened her eyes and saw that the thing was gone. She was lying on the ground, but she was unharmed. Sarah didn't know what had happened. She didn't know why the thing had spared her. She got to her feet and ran back to the house. She locked all the doors and windows and then went to bed. Sarah never saw the thing again, but she knew that it was still out there. She knew that it was watching her. She lived the rest of her life in fear. She was always looking over her shoulder, expecting to see the thing behind her. Sarah died a few years later, but she never found peace. Her spirit is still trapped in the house, haunted by the thing that killed her husband. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more tales.